Hi, everyone. This is Jeff with All Keys Pro. Hey, I'm bringing you the second installment, hopefully of many, of a series I'm calling Key Interviews. And this week I have the pleasure of bringing the great pianist, keyboard player, producer, arranger, Pat Coil to you. In an interview, Pat has been a friend of mine for many years. We knew each other in Dallas. We both went to the University of North Texas, and he has had one of the more amazing careers as a keyboard player that I am aware of. I'm just going to give you some of his credits from his bio. Some of these I wasn't even aware of. He has recorded with Natalie Cole, Nancy Wilson, Carmen McRae, Trisha Yearwood, Ernie Watts, Michael McDonald, George Strait, Peter Cetera, Scott Henderson and Tribal Tech, Michael Feinstein, Kenny Rogers, Travis Tritt, and Woody Herman. Wow. That is a list of people that most 10 keyboard players couldn't brag about. So Pat is an amazing musician, an amazing person, and I think he's an amazing example of what someone can do with the right talent, hard work, and the right attitude with their career. He has just been so successful, and I'm proud to call him a friend. So here's my interview with Pat Coil. Please like and subscribe. Well, thanks, man.
Sure.
The reason I was excited to talk to you is, first of all, personally, you've been such a great mentor for me, and
Oh,
such a great you helped me so much in Dallas as far as just recommending me to people and getting me gigs and introducing me to people and encouraging me. And at that point in my career I was like so green.
wow. Well,
Right out of school, and there was just a lot. I feel like I learned how to be a professional musician in Dallas, so thank you for
yeah.
that help.
Oh, well, if anything, I contributed to that. I'm glad it worked out because you turned out really well. So,
How is I'm curious to hear you talk a little bit about your time in Nashville. I
um,
moved there from LA how many years ago now?
I moved here in '94.
Okay.
So it's been a little while,
Yeah.
and it was one of those moves where once we got here,
Oh,
it felt like I should have done it earlier, should have done it
really?
years ago.
Yeah.
I loved my time in LA, and it was wonderful, irreplaceable. Uh, Got to do a lot of great things and play with some of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
Um, but our kids were young, and we thought we were just looking at for just a better place for them to grow up. Basically, was the whole mentality behind that, and 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 so we did, and it turned out to be great for the kids because it had the type of neighborhoods you could just take off on a bike and not worry about it and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Kind of the way we grew up, right?
Exactly, and then of course Nashville has a great music community, uh, kinds of genres and all kinds of. I mean everything. And most people think of country music, but
Yeah.
it's everything and more. It's got um, it's got a great small but really great jazz scene, and there's a couple of jazz clubs, actual jazz clubs here now, and recording. Of course, there's a lot of recording, which is mainly still what I do, and and then there's a lot of touring bands that start in Nashville and go out of Nashville.
Hmm.
A lot of there's a great orchestra here, and there's a great recording orchestra here, so there's just a lot of opportunities for all kinds of
Wow.
different music. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
It's got to be like the most musician per capita in the,
it is.
in the
It's
world,
amazing.
because it's not that big of a place and there's just so many great players.
Yeah, I mean, and there's kids moving here all the time. I mean,
Right.
I have students when I was teaching at UNT. I have students that I taught there, and they've come here, and
Right.
and I've even been able to recommend them for gigs, which has been great, you know. And then I just seems like every week I'll go. There's a club here called Rudy's, which is a great jazz room, Rudy's Jazz Room, and I'll go here and I'll hear some 20-year-old, you know, piano player just burning it up. I'm going, where do these people come from, and why are they moving here? You
Well,
know,
you know, it's interesting because I think when you and I left University of North Texas, you know, Nashville wasn't a place that we would immediately think of going, but I think
exactly.
that's really changed and evolved.
Oh, it has, yeah, it has. And you know, you know, and the thing is, I enjoy playing different genres of music, and this is a perfect place for that. I mean, I do, you know, some country sessions, you know, and to me, it's like, I think, you know, my old employer Woody Herman said it best. And I think he was quoting Duke Ellington when he said, "There's only two kinds of music: good and bad." And as long as the music is played well and everyone understands the language of that particular genre, it can be a lot of fun and just as gratifying as playing, you know, any great jazz gig. You know, playing a country session and trying to have the craft together to make it sound good and play the right parts.
Of course,
is exciting to me, and I love doing that. So
if that was easy, everybody would do it.
Exactly. I mean, you know, I mean, 3-chord songs can be just as hard as giant steps, you know.
Totally.
And doing it right, you know, and playing the right stuff is just that's a lot of young people that come here don't understand, is that there's a whole language involved and a whole expectation of what fits and what doesn't fit. And then there's the you know, my belief is that in order to sound good, you have to actually love what you're doing. And if you love a simple song, and you know, then it'll come through. You know, you're gonna get hired again because you actually love the music. You're not just saying, "Oh, I know what this is. This is easy," you know. So it's a craft like anything else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's been from a distance. I've just, you know, noticed your career and kind of kept up with you, and that's certainly something that you've been really successful at, wherever you've lived. Really, I mean, I remember in Dallas, there was the big jingle scene, and you were involved in that, and then you also, you know, had your band Recoil, and were playing jazz gigs.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I mean, I think Dallas was a great training ground. You know, especially doing the jingles I mean, Dallas is where, you know, there's a guy there that had actually invented the radio and ID business, you know, where they sing the call letters, you know, KMOX or whatever it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, the guy named Tom Merriman, which was TM.
Oh, I remember that name, sure. Yeah.
TM, he actually invented that. And so Dallas became a center for recording, and it became radio and TV IDs and jingles. And so I got in on that somehow, got recommended by somebody. And it was a great training ground for studio work, and also a great training ground for, like, okay, this has to sound like this style and this has to sound like this genre. So that, you know, that stuck with me, you know. And I also had a band director who encouraged me to be multi stylistic, you know. But my first love has always been jazz, and always will be, or offshoots of jazz. You know, so, and I still remember you playing in Colleen's band, Decade.
Yeah.
And, man, that was a fantastic. I mean, it was a fantastic time in Dallas. That was an amazing time. And I look back and I'm going, man, we had places to play. We had audiences that would come to hear us. We could write and conjure up any kind of music we wanted to, any instrumentation, and people would listen.
It's true.
A fantastic time.
And I remember that time I used to carry around a Rhodes, a Yamaha CP70.
Me too.
And a Mini Moog, and it was insane. You know, I had this big old Ford wagon, and I lugged it all in there.
I know. I did the same thing. I had all that stuff. And
I remember.
And Oberheim, the OBX.
Oh yeah, love those.
I had a Dynamite Rhodes, and what was the other thing? Oh, and the CP70. Yeah, I had the CP70.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all.
I never had a clavinet. I always regret that.
I had one of those too.
Oh,
Yeah, I had that too. Yeah.
now they're outrageously expensive.
That's what I hear. You know, I think I probably just threw mine away at one point. Once
I
again,
know. I know.
so lots of stuff I wish I would have hung on to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the synthesizer market has really changed, I think, for the better in a lot of ways. It's as an analog synth enthusiast, I don't think there's ever been a better time to be alive. I mean, there's so much out there now.
Oh, that's you know, and I have friends who are kind of like you. They're collecting all the keyboards and I have one friend in particular who's starting to do a lot of like little film score work using nothing but the analog stuff, you know,
Oh,
and it
wow.
really sounds good, you know. It's I mean, I think Stranger Things kind of started that whole
Right.
that whole revolution, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you know, and I'm like I say, I'm mostly getting sounds virtually from, you know, through Logic and third-party sounds and stuff like that. There's a lot to be had that way too. So, but yeah, I still miss having some keyboards. I would probably buy one occasionally, I think. Yeah.
They're fun. I like something I can put my hands on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I'd love to talk to you about working with Michael McDonald, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So what was your rig like with Michael?
Well, with Michael, I'm playing B3 and basically a Yamaha. Looks like it's actually this one right here. It's a motif,
Uh-huh.
and then I use a computer on the side for
Oh,
other
do you?
sounds.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm through the motif. I'm triggering all kinds of. Well, sometimes it's just strings. Sometimes it's some just synth pads,
Uh-huh.
or I'll I'm using the motif mainly as a trigger, but
Okay.
I'll mix the motif sounds in with computer sounds through a mixer.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so like sometimes I'll have it Rhodes with a pad in behind it, or just anything that fits the song that we're playing. And of course, Mike is a great pop R&B pianist.
Killer.
So he really killer. I mean, some of the stuff he comes up with is like, I mean, just the intro to Minute by Minute alone
Yeah, totally.
should go in the Keyboard Hall of Fame.
Well, absolutely.
And he's the funny thing is he's always asking me about show him the stuff. And I'm going, no, you should be showing me stuff because you're the one that's winning Grammys, man. Not me.
Yeah.
And, but he's really, he's coming out of a gospel sort of R&B gospel background. He wanted,
Right.
And so he wants me to show him voicings and chord progressions. He uses them, he actually incorporates those into some of this. It's starting to take more.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Great guy to work for.
He's still open to stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's a great guy to work for. And he loves to like kind of open a little bit and let people play. There's a limit to it, but I mean, because the song can't get too long or else you lose the audience.
Of course.
And they
There's a framework there.
Right. But he likes, he features his musicians, and it's pretty cool. He's a good guy. He's just one of those guys in the band that happened to make it big, but he never lost the mentality of just being a band guy, just being one of the band. So it's kind of cool to work for him. Right now, he's been doing the Doobie Brothers reunion tour, and they're into their third year of that. So we're all kind of wondering whether there's a gig after this. He might decide to retire, or he might keep going. But
yeah,
either way is fine with me. I've been with him since 2002, and
wow.
If it ends, it was a great run. If he wants to do more, then I'd love that too. So
yeah.
It just gets harder and harder to ride on a bus these days,
Oh man. So working with someone like Michael, or specifically Michael, I guess, how specific are his demands on you as a keyboard player, as far as like sounds and parts and?
Right, none. He lets me go for it.
Amazing.
And I mean, especially as you know, with B3, you're an actually really real B3 player. I'm just kind of a pop rock
No,
amateur B3.
that's a whole thing. That's
Yeah, it
amazing.
is. But but you know, with B3, it's like icing on a cake. You know, it's just like wherever you feel like it fits in, you put it in there. And um, you know, he's never told me what to play.
Hmm.
I can't
That,
remember
that's
one time where
awesome.
he's told me what to play. You know, I think with him, I have to be, you know, one of the things you have to do in a situation like that, since uh, our sax player Mark Daffin also plays extra keyboard parts too,
Mhm.
and then there's a guitarist, and
Sure.
and then there's vocals, of course, and you just have to, like any situation, you have to figure out where your puzzle piece fits in
Hmm.
and not overplay.
Right.
uh, you just have to like support. And so everything when I'm doing something with Mike, you know, my role is as a supportive uh, musician, not as, you know, except when he gives me a solo or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that it's interesting how different people work. I don't know if you know Graham Hawthorne, a drummer from New York.
No, I
He
don't.
did a Paul Simon tour. I think it was right after Steve Gadd left the band.
Hmm.
And he said that Paul just, rehearses and rehearses and rehearses and rehearses. And is very specific about
Yeah.
the part that every single person plays. Um,
We will rehearse, and I think, you know, and everyone figures out a part, and people will make, and guys, people in the band as a band will make suggestions to each other,
mhm.
which I like, you know, because a lot of times people think of things that I wouldn't think of, you know, and it could be just like, hey Pat, how about if you just lay out here and then come back in here? You know, I'm going, well, yeah, you okay, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So, um,
that's cool.
yeah, I mean, that's, you know, it's kind of like we just sort of self-produce our, you know, our parts, and then and just play around Michael, whatever he
That's
comes up with.
wonderful.
So, yeah.
But it seems like he has a personality which encourages that sort of organic.
Yeah, it's very organic, and and a lot of times he'll take some of these songs that he's done for thousands of times that could get really stale if you let him, you know, if you just end up playing them like the record every night.
Right.
The trick is with him is he likes to change them up just enough to make it interesting, and sometimes he'll try some of his songs in a totally new feel, you know, but
Hmm.
retain enough of it so that the audience still feels like they're listening to the song that they love.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Um, so um, we lost a good friend. Well, he was your good friend, and somebody who was a musical mentor to me, who's Lyle Mays.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was
I'd love to hear you speak about your relationship because that's always been really interesting to me.
yeah. Lyle was probably the only true genius I've ever known. You know, and I recognize that. And you were there when he came to school. I'm sure, right? I think you were. Were you?
That was just a little bit before me.
Okay. Well, when he showed up, it was, and I heard him play. I was going, well, this guy is miles ahead of all of us. I mean, he was just like, you
Yeah.
know, he was already just playing, you know, so great. And you know, I had to make it. You know, I became friends with him, really good friends with him,
Mhm.
and 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 we met at Bruce Hall in the cafeteria,
Mm.
and I made the decision. I mean, a lot of times there's a competition
Uh-huh.
between someone on your instrument, you know, especially at a place like North Texas where competition is sort of a thing, you know.
Sure is. Yeah.
And I just heard this guy and I said, man, I want to learn everything I can from him. You know,
Mm.
he just knows so much that I don't know, and he has all this natural ability and knowledge that I don't
Mm.
haven't. You know, I'm coming out of high school. You know, and so I became friends with him. We actually lived off campus and roomed together. We shared a half of a duplex, and
Uh-huh.
We had a keyboard in every room. We had
Uh,
like a cheap grand piano in the living room, and we each had a Rhodes in our bedrooms. I think there was a clavinet in the bathroom. I can't remember what was in the kitchen. Uh,
awesome.
but I was able to witness him writing that Leb 75 record.
Right.
He would
Won a
play.
Grammy, right?
Yeah, I mean, he would play things that he was thinking about doing, and and kind of bounce them off me. And it was a wonderful time, and I learned so much from him. And the and one of the best things about Lyle is that he was humble and a nice guy.
Hmm.
And he never made me feel um, inferior in any way. He was always very supportive
Hmm.
of me and made me realize that I had stuff to offer because I'm a different person than he was. So, he never made me feel like I was lesser than, even though he was miles beyond, me and most everyone else.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and then when the time came, and much to Leon Breeden's credit, he recognized Lyle's genius and let him just have that
Uh,
record,
yeah.
which is an amazing thing.
Really is.
And that was a special time at that school. There were some guys going there at the time.
Yeah.
There was Steve Houghton and John Riley and Mark Johnson
Wow.
and Dennis Irwin, and I
Bob
mean there
Bowman.
was Bob Bowman, right?
Yeah.
And and a bunch of great horn players, of course. And
Yeah.
it was a really special time at that school. It was and that record was still looked upon as like one of the better college band records I think that ever
Yeah.
happened.
Totally.
And then later on, when I was able to record some of my own records for a label out in LA called Sheffield Lab Records, and they were an audiophile label and did everything direct to 2-track.
Oh wow.
And I called. It came time to do my third record with them, and I said, "Hey, I'd love to have my friend Lyle produce this," and they agreed. And then Lyle and I ended up co-writing most of the record,
Wow.
and then he brought along Steve Rodby from the Matheny band to
Beautiful.
co-produce with him, and that was like a wonderful thing. It was like a big music lesson, because Lyle would actually sit with me at the piano and like say, "Hey, try it this way, try this voicing, try it this," It was like
Wow.
incredible. It was incredible. It was
So incredibly
wonderful.
specific.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And Steve, after Lyle passed, Steve Rodby called me up and graciously told me, he said, "I just want you to know that Lyle, that record was the happiest I think I've ever seen Lyle."
Oh wow.
Yeah, because he was making music with his friends,
Mhm.
and that's what mattered to him. That was the
Wow.
most, was just making music and creating with friends. That was kind of his main thing. That's all he cared about, really.
I mean,
So
that's awesome. I
mhm.
didn't mean to interrupt there. That's a great story.
No, it was. I miss him. I feel like it's really too bad because I think he would have like been doing some incredible things if
Hmm.
once he got, I mean, he got out of music. He quit the Matheny band and he just sort of left music behind for a while. And
Wow.
he got into writing code, and he was also like entering pool, uh,
Mhm.
like competitions, and he was a really good pool player. Um, and then I think once he found out he was really sick and that possibly that it looked like maybe he was gonna, was terminal, I think that's when he decided to record and work on one more piece of music, and
Oh wow.
you've probably heard it, Everhard, and
Yeah, that's great.
it's an amazing, amazing
Totally amazing.
goodbye song, but
Yeah.
I
I
would have loved to have heard what he did, what he would have done.
That's about what I was going to say. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like he had so many great records still to
Oh
do.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He just kind of he got disillusioned with the music business. He felt like the music business left him. He felt like
Right.
the way things were going that there wasn't any any room for a creative person like him to even do anything, or
Right.
which is really too bad.
It's tragic.
Yeah.
I love Fictionary. That record just blows me away.
I remember him playing. I was up at his place when he lived in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And I remember him playing me those tracks, with him and Jack DeJohnette and Mark.
And Mark.
I was going, man, what a great trio. It's too bad that he couldn't have like just toured with that trio and done things. And he did tour he had a band with Bob Shepard and Mark, and I can't remember the drummer's name. But it was.
I love that stuff with Bob Shepard.
And there's some good recordings of that, live recordings of that, and I wish he would have done more of that. I really do.
Yeah.
I wish he would have taken off with that. Yeah.
Well, I think that maintaining a career over the years is really tricky, and it's interesting that somebody like Lyle, who, as you say, was certainly a genius and very successful in a certain way, that it wasn't a cakewalk for even him. I mean, he had to just kind of keep reinventing and then getting out of the business for a while. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the last phone conversation I had with him, he was just so excited about his niece Aubrey. That's where his energy was going. It was like,
oh wow,
in helping her and producing her.
And she's a musician.
Yeah, she's a singer.
Yeah,
I mean, she's got some really great records out.
Well, Pat, I don't want to take more time. It's so gracious of you to spend some time with me, and it's so great just personally to talk to you, man. I miss you, and
good to see you, Jeff.
All right. Well, all my best.
Thanks, Jeff.
I hope to see you soon, and keep up the good work. You're always inspiring.
Well, thank you, and I'll talk to you soon, hopefully.
All right.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.